Okay, we're back with our discussion of CSS Combinators. This time I'll be showing you examples of what I discussed last time in lecture. So we'll start with the CSS, and of course you can see the result of this over in the browser. Let's go to the top of this page. So let's look at the CSS first. Increase the body font size to see the results better. The first combinator we're going to discuss, in fact, the first two combinators we discuss are going to be descendant combinators. So that remember that means an element that's nested within another element that becomes a descendant element to the browser. Okay, so the direct child is the descendant combinator, the selector on the left-hand side, separated with a greater than sign, and then that immediate child. The other descendant combinator is with a space in between. So this combinator would be this parent plus any descendant. Think of grandchildren. So nested within nested within nested, this will apply to. Now, we want to discuss the sibling combinators. So basically, I'd like to divide these into two groups as we saw in the lecture portion, descendants and siblings. And then, within that, direct and immediate. If you remember it that way, you remember all four categories of selector combinators. Descendants, siblings. Then the notion of direct sibling or direct descendant, indirect descendant, indirect sibling. Okay, or any sibling. Okay, so siblings, side by side in the HTML. So their sibling descendants are nested within one another. Siblings are side by side. Body and head, for example, are siblings, and a lot of times header tags or paragraph tags are siblings with each other. Okay, so here I have header tag 3 plus a paragraph, and that's a sibling connector. That's a sibling with a plus in between. So we have basically greater than signs so far, spaces so far, and pluses. And then the other sibling combination is the any sibling combination. Again, next to me, at the same level, brothers and sisters, the tilde in the middle. So the siblings of header 4 will get this style applied to them. Let's go back and we'll look at the results plus the HTML. So descendant combinator, direct child, see this here, and this is here. We have the border solid aquamarine. So in the HTML, we achieve this by here, border. Here's the direct descendant combinator, the direct child, but it doesn't apply to this child. Now, in contrast, the descendant combinator is also a descendant combinator, but any child. So nested within it. So this span nests within this span, just like this one's structured, right, as a grandchild of this header 2. But it gets the style applied to the L. So that's why it has its own box. The children of the children of the children all get that style applied because that's a descendant combination with any descendant. Think of grandchildren as an analogy. Okay, the sibling combinators. So remember, sibling combinators are elements that are side by side in the HTML as siblings, not inherited. So they're not the descendant combinators. So we have header 3 here, and then this first paragraph is the direct descendant of it. So it has the style applied to it that was defined here. Bold, background color, color white, padding, 3 mint, and that results in this for the paragraph. But the other paragraphs that follow, which are also siblings of the header 3, are not selected because it has to be the very first sibling. In fact, if I uncomment out this horizontal rule here, we'll see that the style no longer applies to that paragraph. It applies to the horizontal rule because that's the direct sibling. So this will be the any sibling combinator. So very similar style set with tilde in the middle, H4 paragraph. And the only thing is different. I went with Dodger blue again, and then we see this color combinator, but header 4, and then its siblings, the following paragraphs, all get that style because they're all siblings of another. Okay, we'll come back and we'll summarize this. So here's a summary of what we saw in the example of combinators. We have two categories of combinators, sibling and descendant. And then two concepts within sibling and descendants, that is the direct or any. So for the sibling, you either have the plus or the tilde sign in between the two selectors. For the descendant, you have the greater than sign to select the direct child, or any to select the direct child or the grandchildren, or so forth, any descendant. So combinators, a way to combine CSS selectors. Let me get to put this in display mode. All right. But it gets more interesting. So to keep it simple, I just showed element selectors. But combinators apply to all selectors. Class selectors, ID selectors, any attribute selectors, are also state selectors, the pseudo classes. So combinators combined with these types of selectors on the left and the right of the combinator, plus the elements we've learned about cascading and priority and weight. The CSS is cascading pretty simple rules, but cascading into a very complex set of way to express yourself, as you can see from all the different looks to all the websites that you visit. But it's all the result of clever use of CSS. So see you in the next lecture.